Good morning, everybody. My name is Jordan. I am a apartment broker. I have been in the apartment industry for the past 10 years, and I have a channel that teaches people all about apartment locating and apartment leasing. And today I wanted to dive into a subject that I hear all the time, or I get the question all the time from clients and also from agents that are on my team that are wondering, how do I approach this question with a client, or a client's asked me this. So over the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, people have just fallen in love with this concept of making money on Airbnb. And although Airbnb is a really great concept and it's a great avenue for a lot of people who've made a lot of money from it, the Texas Apartment Association has really cracked down on their verbiage when it comes to subletting apartments for Airbnb purposes. Now, I get reached out to all the time by clients. I know my agents get reached out to all the time by clients from people asking about how can they obtain an apartment for Airbnb arbitrage. Is that the word? I think that it is. But basically, people are trying to lease apartments in their name and basically turn it into an Airbnb, and then making money basically off of somebody else's asset, which is a really great strategy if you can get that sort of thing approved. But I'm going to tell you what I typically tell clients that are looking for this type of situation, and also what I tell my agents to as well. And hopefully this will be helpful for you in your apartment locating business. Because you're going to get this question. So essentially, if I get somebody who reaches out to me and says, hey, I want to sublease an apartment, or do you work with corporate housing? That's something that they a lot of times will ask, is like, do you work with corporate housing? And so I know that the word corporate housing usually means that somebody is looking for an apartment where they can Airbnb it out. And so corporate housing, when I worked on site, when I was a leasing agent, I worked on site. Corporate housing actually meant that a business, a company, an LLC or a corporation was renting out an apartment in their name for their employee or employees to use whenever they're in that specific city. And so usually, in my experience, corporate housing technically means that it's just an apartment that's going under a business's name. And so corporate housing and most apartment buildings have their own set of rules. They have their own set of regulations as far as how they approve a business to get a apartment in a business name. They look at their business credit. Some of the companies like Greystar looks at how long they've been in business. I want to say that they require either 5 or 7 years that company's been in business. Corporate housing has its own set of rules. And oftentimes the on-site leasing teams don't even handle corporate housing. They have to send a corporate housing applicant up to their corporate office, and their corporate office is the people that approve it. So when I was a leasing agent, corporate housing meant that, hey, business like Google is leasing an apartment under Google's name because they're going to have somebody from San Francisco living in Dallas for 6 months out of the year. So that's what corporate housing, I think, originally was. Now, a lot of people, I guess maybe they found the loophole that whenever they were looking for places to Airbnb out and create a business, that they're using the word corporate housing. So if a client comes to me and says, hey, I want a corporate housing apartment, I always clarify with them, are you using this for Airbnb? And 9 times out of 10, they tell me, yes, I am. And then that's when I start to explain to them that Airbnb is against pretty much every single apartment association, Texas Apartment Association lease, which for the most part, every single apartment in Texas uses this Texas Apartment Association lease. It's called the TAA lease. And so I explained to my client, or I tell my agents to explain to their clients, explain to them that Airbnb is basically you can't do it per a typical lease agreement. I also explained to that client that doesn't mean that people don't do it. It doesn't mean that people don't take that risk, but essentially you are getting an apartment. If you were to ignore the lease, you would be getting the apartment with already breaking a piece of that lease. And what leaves you open to the risk of is that if that apartment finds out that they can evict you, and it can ruin your credit. So I always tell clients, hey, I am happy to help you find an apartment. If you're planning on using it for Airbnb, just understand that it's probably against their lease contract. And that's totally up to you if you decide that you're going to break the lease contract or not. But I essentially am an apartment locator and I help people find apartments. So that's kind of the first thing that I tell people. I do also tell people that there sometimes are maybe 1 to 5 properties per city that allows Airbnb through their building, but there's not very many. And I'm able to give them a list of those specific communities, but there's not that many at all. And one of the reasons why is because with Airbnb, if you're allowing Airbnb at your property, for the owners, the management company, it could create some sort of liability issue, because if I'm somebody who has some kind of criminal background that's cases against human beings, like whether it be assault or any type of assault type thing. If I am somebody who has that on my background and that apartment building does not allow anybody with that on their background to live there, but somebody who uses that apartment unit to Airbnb out and make money, and they have a guest that comes in with that type of thing on their background, that apartment, essentially that owner, that management company essentially can become liable because they are allowing Airbnb in their building, and one of the guests had something that was on their background that usually would not be allowed to live in that building per their normal rental criteria. So that's why Airbnb, one of the reasons why, obviously there's lots of issues with people, guests coming and they party a lot and they make a lot of noise, or there could be a lot of damage to buildings or to apartments. So there's a lot of reasons why people don't allow Airbnb in their buildings. But one of the main reasons is because of the liability issue, that you don't know who's coming in and out of your building if you have a resident who leases their unit out on Airbnb. So circling back around. So I normally tell my clients, hey, you're looking for an Airbnb unit. Hey, I can help you find an apartment, but just understand that it's probably against their lease contract if they follow the TAA lease. Or I do try to find those handful of properties that are out there per city that allow it. We have a Facebook group of it's 3,600 apartment locators and leasing agents. And well, they were in Texas, but now it's kind of getting people all over the country. But I sometimes will use that Facebook group to post and say, hey, does anybody know of any apartments that allow Airbnb? As I mentioned, there's usually a handful. So I'll post there, or I'll just know from the top of my head, like from being in the industry for a while, that, oh, this building over here allows it, this building over here. But a lot of times the management companies and the owners change very frequently. So it could have been available last year, that management company allowed it, but maybe this year they don't because they have a new owner. So these are all kind of things that I let clients know, that I'm an apartment locator. Yes, I can help you find an apartment. Can I help you find an apartment that allows Airbnb? Maybe, maybe not. You're kind of, as the client, taking the risk about what you want to do with that. And 9 times out of 10, when I tell people this, a lot of times they're like, oh, shoot, I didn't realize that this was like so hard. I didn't realize that there was so many rules around it. I'm just going to go and find a rental home or a private owner and rent out their condo to do this type of concept. But this question does get asked a lot about, oh, I'm trying to help somebody find Airbnbs, or I, as a client, am trying to find an Airbnb-friendly apartment. And so I wanted to make this video to kind of explain, these are the things that I start to tell clients, like, hey, I'm happy to find you an apartment, but I by no means am going to, I don't want to know what you're doing with that apartment if it is technically against the lease. If it's not against the lease, great. But essentially my job is to help you find an apartment, and it's up to you to make sure that you follow your lease contract. Now, there are a handful of buildings that allow Airbnb, but as I mentioned, it changes all the time. I will say that most of the time, if I get somebody who asks that, I normally tell them the spiel I just told you. It's up to you. It's your own risk. These are the risks associated with it, all of that. Most of the time they say they don't want to do it. But if I do find somebody who is like, hey, I want to lease 5 to 10 apartments, you better believe I'm probably going to be doing research trying to figure out which buildings do allow that. Or I may even go to the links of contacting corporate offices and say, hey, this person has a very like strenuous like screening program for their Airbnb resident or their Airbnb guest. They've been doing this for 7 years. Like there becomes a shift if somebody's like, oh, I want one Airbnb apartment, or if somebody's like, oh, I want 10. If it's like a legit company, they've been doing this, it's a legit host, they've been doing it for like a significant amount of time, they know the risk associated with it, and they're trying to get a lot of units, I probably am going to be more intrigued to go and try to find like answers, whether it be from doing my own research, calling around to properties, asking if they know of anything, or calling corporate offices, because there are also a lot of buildings too that will have certain partnerships with certain types of companies. Like Hello Landing was a company that had a lot of partnerships with management companies, and so that company is a established company, and obviously they got some sort of a connection deal with the management companies that they signed up with. So I think it really kind of just depends on if your client, like how serious are they? How much experience do they have with this? How many units are they looking for? If it's just a one-off person who watched a YouTube video about apartment or about Airbnb apartments, I don't typically help those people, and I usually treat them the way I treat everybody else. I give them the information, and they typically are the ones that end up saying, oh, never mind. So I wanted to make this video about a Airbnb and apartment locating because it's something that comes up all the time. I get clients all the time that ask about it. My agents get clients all the time that ask about it. So I wanted to make this video. We do also, along with this channel where we post like free training videos, we do also have a training community called Soul. It's School of Leasing. And so if you go to school.com/Soul, which is SKOOL.com/SOL, you can have access to all of our training programs. We have like 60 different videos of pre-recorded videos on training. We have Locator scripts, we have Locator resources, one of those of which is going to be second chance leasing properties or Airbnb-friendly properties. We have a ton of training along with all of our social media content that we provide to locators for their business. So if you liked this video, if this was helpful for you, there's a lot more where this came from in our training group. Also, please be sure to join our Facebook community. It is a free Facebook community with almost 4,000 people on it that are locators, leasing agents. Basically, in a nutshell, Soul, School of Leasing, we provide tons of training and resources for apartment locators or for leasing agents. So if you guys found this video helpful, please like, please share, subscribe to our channel. We're going to be posting a lot more videos that are just training videos about the industry, and also we will be posting a lot more resources as well for agents and leasing agents. So talk to you guys soon and see you in the next video.